Hey everybody, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? I have a new book. It's a good one. It's a PDF too. So I hope everybody's doing really good. Please remember to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And share if you can. The new book that I'm going to be reading to everybody, The Key to the Universe by H.A. Curtis. I'm going to give you a little hint. This book is very, very old, to our standards at least. It's from the 1800s. But the author is a woman, Miss Harriet Augusta Curtis, co-founder of the Order of Christian Mystics. The Key to the Universe, a spiritual interpretation of numbers and symbols. Yeah. And it was copywritten in 1917. Crazy. So as I scroll, I get to the first page. I'm excited for this one. Really excited. So I have to back and forth enhance things. So bear with me as I get everything set up. I have my co-host here too, Miss Sleepyhead. Yep. The Key to the Universe, Chapter 1, The Origin of Numerical Systems. Every every cosmogony, from the earliest to the latest, is based upon interlinked with and most closely related to numerals and geometrical figures. End quote. The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky III. Quote, so teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom, end quote. Psalms XC 12. Quote, God is a number endowed with motion, which is felt but not demonstrated, end quote. Balzac. Mathematics is the only exact science, the only one whose propositions are capable of conclusive proof and demonstration. All other so-called exact sciences are based upon assumptions, deductions, and working hypotheses, which are more or less useful until further investigation and discovery proves them to be but partial truths. Sorry, I have to pause there right away. Right away. That is the truest statement when it comes to math and science. So you really can't trust because they're based on assumptions, deductions, and hypothesis. So when they tell you, evil people, tell you, trust it. No thanks. No thanks. Back to the book. And in these days of rapid progress, the changes of base in the exact science are so frequent that the scientific textbooks have to be rewritten every few years. So rapidly are the materialistic concepts of matter and the universe outgrown. Only 3 centuries ago, the exact science of the day was unanimous in opinion that the earth was flat. Opposed the idea of the infinity of the universe and the plurality of worlds to such a degree that its leaders burned Giordano Bruno at the stake for daring to oppose their dictum. Within a decade or two, exact science ridiculed the possibility of the transmutation of metals, classing it as mere vagary of unbalanced mystics. Yet today we have the transmutation of metals going on in many laboratories as a matter of course. Only a few years ago, we were taught that the atom was a particle of matter, but today the same exact science asks us to believe that it is not matter at all, but the union of 2 units of force called electrons. Guys, this was written in 1800 by a woman. What the mind-blowing stuff, okay? Serious. The facts as taught by the mystics of all ages remain. Modern interpretation of them evolves and expands. Words are symbols of ideas, but numbers are symbols of divine realities, spiritual verities, eternal in the heavens, which express themselves periodically in the worlds of objectivity. Quote, if, as Paragadhus said, the world is built upon the power of numbers. Sorry, Pythagoras, I said that wrong. The world is built upon the power of numbers, then the numbers must be the key to the understanding of the world, end quote. Quote, they are a key to the ancient views on cosmogony in its broad sense, including man and beings and the evolution of human race, spiritually as well as physically. Okay, this is where I'm going to have my peepers going closer. Quote, hence we find numbers and figures used as an expression and a record of thought in every archaic symbolical scripture. They are ever the same with certain variations only rising from the first figures, end quote. Following Professor Max Mueller, it is commonly accepted that our present numerical system was invented by the Arabs. For he tells us that, quote, the 2 words cipher and 0, which are but 1, are sufficient to prove that our figures are borrowed from the Arabs, end quote. As a matter of fact, the system was introduced into Europe by Pythagoras, who found it already fully developed in India. It was true that later the system was widely spread by the Arab traders, but they also obtained it from India. Professor Mueller later admits this origin himself when he says elsewhere, quote, cipher is the Arabic Sipran, which means simply a translation of the Sanskrit name of naught, end quote. Among the Hebrews, the Kabbalistic word Setharoth also corresponds to the word cipher, not in the sense of nothing, but rather in the sense of containing within itself the powers of creation by number and degrees of evolution, although as yet unmanifested, hence a void. The Hindus, however, did not claim to have originated the science, for the sages declared that it was revealed to them by the devas, the gods. Also, quote, the Pythagoreans asserted the doctrine of numbers, the chief of all in Stoicism, had been revealed to man by the celestial deities, that the world had been called forth out of chaos by sound or harmony, and according to the principles of music proportion. These are the confirmations of the occult teaching that science of numbers was not solely evolved by primitive man learning to count on his fingers, which is deduced as the probable origin by exoteric investigators, but was a fully elaborated system of computation revealed to the priesthood of the early races by the elder brothers and spiritual teachers of mankind. Quote, the symbol was the origin of measure, shadowing forth creative law or design. Reflection becomes more involved when it is considered that the power of expression of the law exactly by numbers, clearly defining a system, was not the accident of the language, but was in very essence and its primary organic construction. Therefore, neither the language nor the mathematical system attaching to it could be of man's invention, unless both were founded upon a prior language, which afterwards became obsolete. No matter how far back in the night of time archaeological or other investigations are extended, high stages of civilization are found, each having elaborate numerical system, where, according to modern scientific theories, only the most primitive conditions might be accepted. Even today, we find primitive systems existing side by side with the most advanced. They are found, however, only among the sub-races, which are not in touch with the highest civilization of their age. Relics of so-called primitive people, the so-called cavemen, and other degenerative remnants of the earlier sub-races are no more an index of the stage of development to which mankind as a whole had reached in those bygone days. Then the development of the present Bushmen of Australia, or the Ainos of Japan, I don't know if I said that right, are an index to the height in which civilization was reached today. The two extremes exist by the same time, if not side by side. The almost incalculable antiquity of elaborate astronomical and numerical systems is sufficiently indicated to sustain the occult teaching by following quotation. Quote, Diogenes Laertius carried back the astronomical calculations of the Egyptians to 48,863 years before Alexander the Great. Martinus Capella collaborates this by telling posterity that the Egyptians had secretly studied astronomy for over 40,000 years before they imparted their knowledge of the world. Mr. Proctor shows in his Myths and Marvels of Astronomy that the ancient astronomers had acquired a system of the most accurate astronomy 2,400 years BC. The Hindus date that their Kali Yuga, from a great periodical conjunction of the planets 31 centuries BC. Simplicius in the 6th century AD writes that he had always heard that the Egyptians had kept astronomical observations and records for a period of 630,000 years. This statement appears to frighten Mr. Gerald Massey, who remarks that if we read this number of years by the month, which Exodus said the Egyptians termed a year, a course of time that would still yield the length of 2 cycles of precession, 51,763 years. It's a lot. Missing pages, missing pages. So there's missing pages. Again, this is a very old book and it's a PDF. Like somebody like scanned in the book. Okay, I'm going to read this quote. Quote, number is, as the great writer Balzac thought, an entity, and at the same time, a breath emanating from what he called God, and what we call the all, the breath which alone could organize the physical cosmos, where not obtains its form, but through deity, which is an effect of number, end quote. Numbers may be compared to the bones of the body, in that they are the framework upon which superstructure of manifestation is erected. Therefore, even if the study of occult mathematics may seem to some but a study of dry bones, it is necessary to the occult student as a study of osteological to the medical students. Its study was considered so important by the Greeks that it, together with physical culture, comprised the entire educational curriculum. Their system of mathematics, however, embraced 4 categories: arithmetic, or the laws of numbers; geometry, of the laws of plane and solid figures; astronomy, which included astrology, or the laws of both planetary motions and their spiritual and magnetic influence; and finally, music, under which heading they include harmony, rhythm, and poetry, their poetry in turning embracing the history of the world. In the Bible, from the days of creation to the apocalypse, great stress is laid upon numbers, especially 3, 4, 7, and 12. In the Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, Upanishads, the numbers underlie every hymn, and stress is laid upon 1, 3, and 7. The same system upon which Vak, or sacred speech of Zoroaster, was built. Hence, it is impossible to become an adept and fully grasp the deep problems of either the Brahmanical, Buddhistic, Zoroastrian, or Christian sacred books without knowledge of the significance of numbers. The power of mantram, or hymn, or reading from one and the sacred books, varies with the numbers and syllables of the words, the rhythm of the meter and vibrations of tones used, in addition to the meaning of the words themselves. This is recognized more or less clearly in all religions, from the chanting of the sacred sentence, mani, padme, hum, of the Hindu and Tibetan monks, the rhythm reading from Granth Sahib, and the repetition of the sacred name, Wahguru, of the Sikhs, to the intoning of the service in many branches of Christian church. If these various forms of mantra are intoned slowly and with a rhythmic cadence, a certain effect is produced. If quickly and sharply, quite a different effect results. These effects, being founded upon the laws of vibration, are not imaginary, nor merely the result of suggestion upon especially sensitive persons. The nerves are like the strings of a musical instrument and try to respond and adjust to themselves to the vibrations playing upon them, and the effects are plainly apparent both upon the mind and the emotions. This is the secret of soothing and healing power of music, as well as stimulating effect of martial airs. Since all things manifest according to the laws of numbers and vibration, everything can be made to respond to these laws. Hence, one who has gained the mastery over his voice, or as the occultist would say, can command the army of the voice, is master over all. This is the only true magic. Know thyself. Know the key note of what that which you desire, harmonize yourself with it, and then sound it. God geometricizes is an ancient occult axiom which cryptically expresses the fact that all manifestations of God, life, nature, as they come into objectivity from subjectivity, flow along geometrical lines and follow geometrical laws. Quote, it is an interesting fact that the superior metals crystallize at the angle of complemental angle, sorry guys, it's like a stain on the book, of a regular polygon. If they sometimes follow one form and sometimes another, we should not recognize them for what they are. We depend on the fidelity of our perceptions upon the integrity of the great geometer. If we steadily regard the geometry of nature in the same patent and sincere manner as did Hippocrates, Ptolemy, Kepler, Tycho, Newton, Calvin, and others, we shall probably come to the conclusion that number as expressed in geometrical relations is the most intimate expression of the soul of things. Each such expression has its number rate of vibration or wavelength, its sound, color, and form, and its own place in the grand plan or scheme of the universe. This is as true of the forces which create a world as of those which create a snow crystal. As we have said earlier, all nature shapes can be traced back to and analyzed into simple geometrical figures. Triangle, square, circle, just as all musical notes produce characteristic designs that made to pass through sand or other substitute material. Quote, thus the evolution and correlation of the mysteries of cosmos, of its growth and development, spiritual, physical, abstract, and concrete, were first recorded in geometrical changes of shape. In the view of the above facts, some understanding of the origin and significance of numbers and geometrical forms is necessary to the larger conception of divine manifestation, whether in man, nature, or the universe. For numbers are not arbitrary symbols, but constitute a sacred science, its symbols being generated by the manifestation of all nature and the cosmos itself, as we shall endeavor to show herein. I don't know, this sounds so good. I love it. Chapter 2, the symbol of the circle and the serpent. Quote, God is a circle, the center of which is everywhere and the circumference nowhere. Quote, end quote, Pascal. Like his work. Quote, alone, the one form of existence stretched, boundless, infinite, causeless, in dreamless sleep, and life pulsated unconscious in universal space, throughout the all-presence, which is sensed by the open eye of Dangma. End quote. Stanzas of Daizan 1 and 8. In numerical systems, the circle is the first symbol to be considered, as it is the first from which all others proceed. It is a symbol of unmanifested deity. In the Bible, the darkness of chaos from which the cosmos emerges. It is the night of Brahman, in which all is latent. A boundless darkness on the ground of which appears the first central point in white. It may sound paradoxical to call the deity, whom we are wont to think of the universal life and omnipotent being, a circle of darkness. Yet right here, the student must begin to adjust his point of view to the occult and mystical conceptions. A fundamental axiom is that extremes meet. Also, the vibrations of light and life may be so intense that they cannot be perceived by the man's physical senses. The solar spectrum above violet, for instance, hence are apparently darkness and non-existent. Such a boundless circle of pulsating, vibrant, yet undifferentiated life force proceeding from the center of all life forms the waters of the great deep, deep in that they are unfathomable and incomprehensible to undeveloped man. Only when the Spirit of God moves upon these waters and the world, the Son of God is sent down into manifestation, are the waves of the great deep stilled. The vibrations are slowed down so that which we understand as life begins to manifest. Having neither beginner nor end, as we have said elsewhere, quote, the circle represents boundless space and limitless time in eternity. It marks off the space in which creation takes place, or the circle formed by the downpouring of the great creative force. It is much like the circle of light projected by a magic lantern, within which the pictures are to appear. In one sense, it is the circle of the unmanifested zodiac, the pathway of our solar system. In other words, it is the boundless sphere of space within which our entire cosmos is manifesting. Our Earth is but one point or digit in the mighty circle or cipher. The circle is called naught or nothing because no thing has been differentiated or manifested. It is the silence of non-being. It is, quote, the secret habitation of the ever invisible deity, end quote. Quote, in the minds of the ancient philosophers, something of the divine and mysterious has ever been ascribed to the shape of the circle. The old world, consistent in its symbolism and with its pantheonic institutions, uniting the visible and invisible infinitudes into one, represented deity and its outward veil alike by a circle, end quote. Sorry, guys. Quote, in the beginning was a great abyss, chaos. Neither day nor night existed. The abyss was Ginniganap. The yawning gulf, without beginning, without end. All Father, the uncreated, the unseen, dwelt in the depth of the abyss, space, and willed, and what willed came into being. Arenas is writing of the number symbolism of the Marcosians, says, before all universe there is a source or beginning, before the primal source, prior even to the state which is inconceivable, infallible, unnumerable, which I number as notness. Pause. So the Norse beginning story is the Ginniganap. It's exactly what was stated there. All Father for them in the Norse is Odin. But Odin was the first. It was Ymir. Back to the book. How to add that. It may be easier to form a conception of the beginnings of a mighty universe if we apply the same laws and processes to the individual, for in our small way, we are all centers which send out invisible radiations of life force in a circle. The size of the circle being limited by the forcefulness of the life within the center. Until its forces are made concrete and direct toward definite ends, the circle is an invisible and unknown circle of darkness, a chaos, yet vibrant with potencies our vague and unformed desires, longings, and ideals. This circle is our sea, corresponding to the great deep. On it, we are rocking in the little boat of our personality. The Christ within is asleep, and spiritual darkness is upon the face of the waters. Guys, I can't. This is like book reaction reading all in one. Like I skimmed the book, but I didn't read word for word. Gosh. The Christ within is asleep, and spiritual darkness is upon the face of the waters. We sail over the sea of life, wholly engrossed in the things pertaining to our personality, until a tumultuous and inharmonious condition arises and threatens to overwhelm us. When the personality sees no way of escape, in desperation, it cries out, quote, Lord, save us, we perish, end quote. It appeals to the Christian within, it appeals to the Christ within. Quote, Master, carest thou not that we perish? End quote. Then the Son of Man, the same omnipotent word, sent forth in the beginning, arises and rebukes the tempterous forces, winds of adversary, which manifesting normally in man's creative circle, should steady advance his evolution without overwhelming him. The wind symbolizes the breath of the spirit moving upon the waters of life. While it should quicken the vibrations of the sea of life, it should not be permitted to create a storm capable of wrecking the little boat of personality. But when the master within is awakened, he is able to rebuke the tempterous winds and say to the sea, peace, be still. Okay, here's a word I'm not going to be, a name that I'm not going to be able to pronounce properly. I'm going to try my best. Don't hold me to it, please. Quote, the Zirana Akarin is also the boundless circle of unknown time, from which circle issues the radiant light, the universal sun, or Ordmans, the Logos, or the firstborn, and the later is identical with Kronos in the Alien form that of a circle. For the circle is Sar and Skaros, or cycle. Sorry, guys, I know that's Greek and I'm butchering it. It was the Babylonian god whose circular horizon was the visible symbol of the invisible, while the sun was the one circle from which proceeded the cosmic orbs, of which he was considered the leader. Zirana is the chakra or circle of Vishnu, the mysterious emblem which is, according to the definition of a mystic, a curve of such a nature that as to any the least possible part thereof, if the curve be projected in either way, it will proceed and finally re-enter upon itself and form one and the same curve, or that which we call the circle. No better definition could thus be given of the natural symbol and the evident nature of deity, which having its circumference everywhere, the boundless, has therefore its central point also everywhere. In other words, it is in every point of the universe. The circle is also represents the Garden of Eden, which contained everything that would be needed for the growth and unfoldment of as yet unmanifested man or Adam, the number one. It was into this great encompassing circle or garden that the Lord God, the seven Elohim, put the first man made in their sevenfold image to dress it and keep it. In the midst of the garden was placed the tree of life, which astronomically and astrologically is the sun, which all is life-giving powers is the center of the zodiac, or the dot in the circle. As applied to man, the tree of life is the midst of his Eden body, refers to a deep mystery which then, understood in its fullness, will, as the God said, make him become as one of us, the Elohim, a perfect circle, knowing that good as well as evil, or both, halves of the circle. Man, upon the physical plane, stands in the center of his circle, which reaches up to the realms of the gods, and also sweeps downward into the nether worlds. Hence, ere he can manifest and master his complete circle, he must, like all saviors, descended into the hell of matter and become the savior of all the lower kingdoms, or he can ascend into the higher realms or re-enter Eden. This will elaborated in the chapter on number 17 in volume 2. A circle formed by a serpent symbol of life and wisdom swallowing its tail, symbolizing unending life or more immortality. But this symbol means far more than a cycle of time, for it also symbolizes the source of all creation, the womb of nature from which the universe comes forth, and also the womb from which the future man proceeds, even the fetus in the womb being curved upon itself in a circular fashion. This is the esoteric meaning of the so-called temptation to create, as allegoricalized in the 3rd chapter of Genesis, when the circle of the serpent began its innumerable evolutions within the cycle of manifestation. The Garden of Eden. The serpent therefore represents the cosmic great creative force, which manifests a sex force only when focused in the sex organs. The great creative force in the Christ force, or that fructifying and vivifying power through those whose action all things are brought into manifestation, not out of nothing, but out of the circle or great storehouse of potential energy, which awaits only the creative activity of the Lord God, the law of good, to bring forth. In the biblical allegory, we have the Godhead manifesting in its positive man and negative woman aspects with the magnetic attraction of the creative force, serpent power, uniting them and forming his likeness, or the expression of the Trinity on earth. The manifestation of the great creative force in its aspect as sex is most potent factor in man's evolution, spiritual as well as physical. In fact, upon its right understanding rests the destiny of mankind on this planet, for only through generation and the lessons learned through the manifestation of great creative force, it is most dense and material aspect of sex, can mankind reach regeneration. Only by the power of the Christ can man meet and conquer all that comes to him in this day of manifestation, and out of the seemingly blind forces of its chaotic night create a new day. Now, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. In this connection, many students do not observe the proper distinction between the word subtle, which is used to describe the serpent, and subtle, which has quite a different meaning. According to the Standard Dictionary, subtle means having fine structure, not gross or dense, rarefied, refined, attenuated, ethereal, hence penetrating as a subtle perfume, while subtle is used as an attribute of mind in the derogatory sense of crafty. We therefore see that the serpent is not represented as crafty and enticing, but as an ethereal creative force, which unites the positive and negative and enables them to bring forth. In the Egyptian mystery, in the Egyptian mythology, Kheneph, the eternal unrevealed God, is represented by the snake emblem of eternity encircling a water urn, with its head hovering over the waters, which he incubates with his breath. In this case, the serpent is, oh boy, Agathademon, the good spirit. It's putting the words together, guys. And I used to teach kids this. Agamemnon. Sorry, guys. It is the opposite aspect. It is the Cacodemonian, the bad one. Quote, it is owing to the serpent being aviparous, that it became a symbol of wisdom and emblem of the Logi, or the self-born. The creative God emerges from the egg that issues from the mouth of Kheneph as a winged serpent, for the serpent is a symbol of the all wisdom. With the Hebrews, the same deity is glyphed by the flying or fiery serpents of Moses in the wilderness. And with the Alexandrian mystic, she becomes the Orphino Christos, the logos of the Gnostics. The Protestants tried to show that the allegory of the brazen serpent and the fiery serpents has a direct reference to the mystery of the Christ and the crucifixion, whereas in truth it has a far nearer relation to the mystery of generation when disassociated from the egg, with the central germ or the circle with its central point. Without the egg, it was purely a phallic symbol, but when associated therewith, it related to the cosmic creation. Quote, so little have the first Christians understood the first 4 chapters of Genesis in their Stoic meaning. They have never perceived that not only there was no sin intended, but that the serpent was actually the Lord God himself, who as Ophis, the Logos, or the bearer of the divine creative wisdom, taught mankind to become creators in their turn. They never realized that the cross was an evolution from the tree and the serpent, and thus became the salvation of mankind. By this, it would become the very first fundamental symbol of creative cause, applying to geometry, to numbers, to astronomy, to measure and animal reproduction. Whoa! What can be plainer? The divine creative force degraded by man has become, through man's evil thoughts, the tempter and devil. Yet it must manifest in matter. Number 4, as the cross, following the sequence of the circle 1, 2, and 3. Hence, only when mere animal desire and the wrong use and abuse of this mighty spiritual force of creativeness has been crucified and balanced upon the cross of matter, can the scriptures be fulfilled. Quote, for since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection from the dead, end quote. Quote, the divinity of the serpent is proved by the occurrence of horned serpent with 12 Roman gods on a Gallo-Roman altar. In other cases, a horned or ram's headed serpent appears as an attribute of a god. M. Reinach claims that the primitive elements of the Orphic mythic of the Thracian Dionysus Zargrins, the divine serpent producing an egg, whence came the horned snake, Zagrins, occurred in dislocated from the gull. Their enlacing serpents were believed to produce a magic egg, and there a horned serpent was worshipped. And horned serpents are known in other mythologies, the horn being perhaps a symbol of divinity. End quote. The horned serpent referred to above was not worshipped any more than the cross of the Christian world today, but was a symbol of divine wisdom. Stinson Jarvis explains it thus, quote, out of the great female egg parent, the M'un, mother egg, comes the druid sign of wisdom, the serpent. Thus every tail sign, CU, growing out of the head or egg, as shown in the Q, tells of the wisdom that comes from the head, and the carved moon priest at Planck has a great CU hanging down from the back of its head, because this wisdom serpent called CU comes out of the egg or head, namely out of the mind or moon deity, who is our own mind, and is also the cat goddess pictured in my 4th chapter. Our Orphidinian, guys, it's like stretched out, so I don't want to mispronounce anything, or snake, is the time sign alphabetic serpent name in the Greek word for snake as Orphis, which says circle. The island sign, because it's named the Circle Church. In the same kind of naming, the Orphites, a so-called heretic branch of the early Christians, had a snake god named by them as the father of sciences. And their name, Orphites, records their snake god and themselves as the snake wisdom people in regular way. It is therefore a mistake due to ignorance of its symbology to identify the serpent with evil or the devil. It was only by man's perversion of his godlike power to create and his misuse of it for mere animal gratification and to further his own selfish ends that he has created all the evil from which he and all the kingdoms below him have suffered from the time of its first misuse. Each stage of unfoldment and each phasing, sorry guys, it's cut off, passing phase of evolution has its needs and its highest point of expression, like the crest of each inrushing wave of the sea. The sacred function of creation, of which sex is but one expression, must not be confounded merely to its animal function of procreation, for procreation is but one breaker on the shore of time, that which is called sex, which operating through the sex organs of the body becomes divine creative Christ force when operating through nature. Creative ideation, when functioning through the mind and outgoing of the divine breath, or the urge to manifest of the God creativeness, when functioning through the cosmos, all being expressed of the eternal notion of, or the first life of the divine circle, while the creative function must have its expression through our animal body, as must all our functions, and while it has its animal aspect, It is by no means limited to the animal aspect, but has its higher and spiritual uses as well. Quote, as to the importance of ardent love between parents, the irony would seem to be that many women, owing to early lack of hygiene and attention to perfect physical development, are incapable of reaching any depth of such feelings, while a few take actual pride in such insensitivities due to distorted ideas of sex and chastity. Under such conditions, union for whatever purpose must be far from ideal. What it all comes to is that with some temperaments, a sacramental union for the deepening of unity and blending of two natures should be fully recognized, apart from the careful consideration due to the creation of children. When nature intends that sex function is humanity shall be limited to procreation only, there'll be but one season in the year when the human female can be impregnated. Until that time, the very fact that this is not the case shows that there must be other and higher uses for that function. Among the highly cultured Druid priests who brought with them to Britain and Gaul much of the wisdom of their Hyperborean ancestors, every letter was a word and a symbol, which pictured that which is chiefly represented. Later on, these single letter words were combined into syllables and longer words, but always carrying with them something of the original meaning of the individual letters of which they were composed. As Stinson Jarvis shows, quote, as in on many other carvings, the ears of the high priest, who was deity, are shown by two forms of the letter O. The alphabet word O is the full Celtic name of the ear, and its naming of this God-man's ears is of itself a complete identification of his image with the Celtic church. The church named herself by the O, and because the circle, sorry guys. And because she was the ear, eye, and mouth of the world, the circle names all three, as in O's, the mouth, oculus, and ophthalmos, the eye, and O in the circle, org, and os, the ear. Just a pause. So guys, when this author is writing, there's no difference between the circle as in the letter O or the 0. It's literally that there. And it's going back and forth. So, and there's no differentiation with what they mean. So I'm trying hard here. Consequently, the winged circle was the regular record carving of the church. Our circle named the ear, eye, and mouth because this was the eye of the circle church, named in the Celtic as Ain, meaning both eye and circle, and was carved in the America and everywhere as the winged eye or circle. Thus, the version forms of Ezekiel are described as covered with eyes, as the Los Angeles Night King tablets from Teotihuacan. I know how to say that word too. Teotihuacan. See, if I see it, I can't say it. Are also covered with eyes, picturing all-seeing eye of the deity church. Thus, the circle as a symbol of the boundless deity, from whence all things come into manifestation, become the symbol of their church, because the church represented the deity among men, and because their priests, being the descendants of the missionary initiates from the original sacred college of the ancient Hyperboreans, set forth the principles and worship of the circle deity to the peoples of Britain and Gaul, just as did brother initiates sent to India, Chaldee, Egypt, North America, Mexico, and Peru. The worldwide travels of these ancient missionaries, initiates, and their descendants account for the finding of the same symbol and legends in all countries to express the same ideas. Their places of worship were therefore built in circular form. Our modern word for a place of worship, church, being the same as the Angelian cirque or cirque, seek, and kirk are all the same in naming the church, which in Britain was formed as a circle, and they named it. The circle was also their sign for time, turn, and cycle. Under any of its names, the belt or gird had the same reference to the circling of the sun, which named the church. And thus the hawk, which flies in a circle and describes the holy form in the air, was chosen as a picture name of the priesthood named in Greek as Kirkos, church or circle. This is the hawk, which, as Job says, was made to fly southward. In Egypt, was the head of the local priesthood, his name Kirkos, recording him as the circle of the church. To indicate their spiritual authority derived from the one circle or including deity, the priests and often the rulers of various nations wore a headdress, a circlet of feathers, as do the American Indian chiefs, the kings of Hawaii, and others. The headdress has the circlet of feathers because the light feather, under any of its names, always names the parent church identified with air. And the Angelian word for feather is father, also means father. Again, the parent circle or source of all. Since the circle is the plane in which the deity, that which contains the potencies of all spiritual powers, is to manifest in its perfect expression, the church on earth should be the plane of all embracing circle, which holds the potencies of all that humanity can require for the manifestation of its spiritual life, the true priesthood being the dot in the center of the circle. The round towers of Ireland, of which only 18 of 20 out of more than 120 exist today, were connected with the Druid sacred colleges and hence were circular in shape. According to Jarvis, quote, the round towers of Ireland have never had their uses explained, but as the towers of Peru and Babylon were admittingly for astronomical purposes, so Ireland also had her observatories, and all these were her chief structures and landmarks. Their names were used to identify her with the secret of stories, and also to name her time gods, her astronomical priests, and even her colonies, such as Tyrans, who named Tyr means Tower Islanders. The same of these observatories existed before the pyramids were built is shown in the fact that the picture of a tower is built inside the Great Pyramid to name our tour of Jupiter. In the book of Daniel, we are told that Nebuchadnezzar set up his wonderful gold image in the plain of Dura. The meaning of Dura being a round or circular enclosure. And the round tower of Belus, or Bel, in the center of the circular temple of the sun in Babylon is familiar to all classical students and antiquarians. The steeple or tower connected with the temple or place of worship in Christian and other countries today is but a survival of the one sacred symbology. Okay. Very tiny, very, very tiny print. We here wish to call a special attention to a remarkable series of articles by Mr. Stinton Jarvis, which appeared in the Los Angeles Sunday Times during 1912 through 13. Mr. Jarvis has performed a most important service for all students of comparative religion and mythology by tracing through the original meanings of the individual symbol letters, the common origin of all great religions, myths, allegories, heroes, symbols, and ceremonies. As we shall take pleasure in quoting frequently from these letters, we wish here to express our appreciation of the great work he has done in placing this vast amount of facts together with his wonderfully consistent scheme of interpretation of the disposal of his fellow students of religion and mythology. There is one fundamental deduction, however, which we must take issue with Mr. Jarvis. At the time these articles were written, he had evidently not looked up the ancient Stoic teachings as to the origin of the races of mankind, hence is led to identify the Druid priestess of the historical period with the ancient Hyperboreans of the second great race of mankind, and as a result, credits these priests with the origin of all religions, languages, symbols, sciences, etc. As a matter of fact, the Druid priests were merely the remote descendants of the original missionary initiates, masters of wisdom or god-men of the Golden or Hyperborean age, who were sent out of all lands to teach the nations of the third Lemurian and fourth Atlantean races the one true universal and all-including spiritual sun worship, now called the wisdom religion. Students who are especially interested in this subject shall look up the references to the Hyperboreans in Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, which, with the above exception, largely collaborates with Mr. Jarvis' deductions. Wow. Debating on timing, but chapter 3 sounds very interesting. So I'm going to continue. I will read this as the last chapter. I'm like in awe and in like, this is bananas. Like, this is good bananas. Like, it's late by me and I have things to get done tomorrow, but I don't care because this is so good. The circle as the egg and the cat. You see? How can I skip this? Brahma, the self-existing, quote, desiring to produce various creatures from his own body first, with a thought created the waters and deposit in them a seed. This seed became a golden egg, repleasant as the sun in which he himself was born, as Brahma, the progenitor of the worlds, end quote. Sanskrit text, Mir 27. Oh. Quote, thus when the Orphic poet desired to go further back than the point to which the Hesodic theology traces the generation of the cosmons, he traced the universe to the great mundane egg produced by Kronos, time out of chaos, and I saw that too. And either a symbol answering to the mighty mixing bowl and the Platonic demiurge, akin to all the circular, oval, or boat-shaped emblems of fertility. End quote. The mythology of Aryan nations, Cox 437. Guys, so like I'm reading this, so like half my screen is covered, so I didn't see, but I saw the light change, and my lights, oh boy. Purifying my space with love and light. All negative energy must leave my space. That's blue sage, by the way. I have a lot of different sages. That one just burns a little easier. But yeah, I'm back. The circle is the golden egg, or the serpent's egg, the womb of nature from which the universe is hatched. The universal symbol. Quote, the mystery of the apparent self-generation of evolution through its own creative power, repeating in miniature in the egg, the process of cosmic evolution, both due to the heat and moisture under the efflux of the unseen creative spirit, fully justified and selection of this graphic symbol. The virgin egg is the microcosmic symbol of the microcosm prototype, the virgin mother, chaos, or the primeval deep. Cosmos, as receptive nature, is an egg fructified yet left immaculate. For once regarded as boundless, it could have no other representation than a spheroid. While the egg is a true symbol of all physical generation, it is also a symbol of the Christ seed within each heart. For within the spheroidal aura surrounding each soul, like the shell of an egg, there is a germinal center, the Christ seed, common to all his bodies, physical, astral, mental, etc., which, like the germ center within the egg, gradually grows and unfolds until the Christ man emerges. He is then just as much as a new and altogether different expression of the soul as is the chicken different from the egg when it emerges from its shell. Quote, the Chinese believe that their first man was born from an egg, which Tian dropped down from heaven to earth into the waters. This egg symbol is still regarded by some as representing the idea of the origin of life, which is a scientific truth, though the human ovum is invisible to the naked eye. The Christians, especially the Greek and Latin churches, have fully adopted the symbol and see it in a commemoration of life eternal, of salvation, of resurrection. This is found in and corroborated by the time-honored custom of exchanging Easter eggs from the engumonium, I don't know if that's a word, the egg of the pagan druid, whose name along made Rome tremble with fear, to the red Easter egg of the Sylvanian peasant. A cycle has passed. And yet, whether it in civilized Europe or among the abject savages of Central America, we find the same archetype, primitive thought. End quote. Among the Greeks, eros, love, is poetically described as having issued from the egg of night as it floated on the waters of chaos. Since divine love is the outbreaking whose vibrations quicken the chaos of unmanifested life held within the mighty circle of the great deep. Eros, as a symbol of love manifesting on the physical plane, can indeed be said to issue from the egg of night. The goddess Venus, his mother, is the ruler of the planet Venus, the sister planet of our Earth. Quote, according to the occult doctrine, this planet is our Earth's primary and spiritual prototype, end quote. The planet Venus is so closely affinitized with our Earth and so closely connected with an evolution as with its birth, that it is said that every sin committed on Earth is felt by its guardian spirit. Also, that every great regenerating or spiritual movement on Earth, like a great wave of love and happiness, is first communicated to the ruler of Earth by the spirit of Venus. The sea foam from which she is represented to have arisen was the result of the churning of the great deep as chaos responded to the life-giving vibrations of creative love when the word was spoken, quote, let there be light, end quote. It will be remembered, however, that Venus complained to Thymes that her son Eros remained ever a child. In other words, human love remained undeveloped. Thymes assured Venus that this was because he was solitary. So soon afterward, another son was born to Venus, whom she called Antros. He is represented both as the avenger of slighted love and as symbolic of reciprocal affection. Thymus, who is the myth, is called divine justice, was the wife of Zeus and mother of the fates, hence represents karma, while Anteros is the aspect of love which brings dire results when love is degraded or unrequited. He is that as respect of love which enables the serpent to swallow its tail or the circle to be completed. The human love may once more be swallowed up by the ocean of divine love from whence it emerged. Orphic egg is described by Aristophanes and was a part of Dionysic and other mysteries, during which the mundane egg was considered and its significance explained. For Morphe also shows it as to be a representation of the world. The myth of Leda is another symbol of the feminine aspect of divine love. Libra, the sheath of Venus, for she was visited by Zeus in the guise of a swan, the bird of life, and is then said to have produced 2 eggs, from one of which Castor and Pollux, immortalized in the heavens as the signs of Gemini the twins, were born, and from the other Helen, for whose blandishments the Trojan War was waged. Thus does life bring forth from the great mundane egg, first duality, Castor and Pollux, symbolizing the intellectual faculties brought forth from an earthly mother and divine father, hence always vacillating and unbalanced, and 2, Helen, the symbol of purely human love, beautiful, seductive, and stirrer up of strife, bloodshed among men. Quote, as Bryant shows it, the egg was a symbol adopted among the Greeks, the Syrians, the Persians, and Egyptians. In the Egyptian ritual, Seb, the god of time and of the earth, is spoken of having laid an egg conceived at the hour of the great one of the dual force. Whence the universal symbol, the egg was incorporated as a sacred sign in the cosmogony of every people on the earth, and was revered both on an account of its form and of its inner mystery. From the earliest mental conceptions of man, It has been known as which represented the most successful, the origin and secret of being, the gradual development of sorry guys, the word's cut off. Impermissible germ within the closed shell, the inner word working, without any apparent outward interference of force, which form a latent nothing produced an active something needing not save heat, and which, having gradually evolved into a concrete living creature, broke its shell, appearing to the outward sense of all as a self-generated and self-created being. All this must have been a standing miracle from the beginning. Quote, the secret teaching explains reasons for this reverence by the symbolism of the prehistoric races. In the beginning, the first cause had no name. Later, it was pictured in the fancy of the thinkers as the ever-invisible mysterious bird that dropped an egg into chaos, which egg became the universe. Hence, Brahma was called Kalihansa, the swan in space and time, becoming the swan of eternity. Brahma, at the beginning of each Mahamantrava, lays a golden egg, which typifies the great circle or circle, itself a symbol for the universe and spherical bodies. Mahamantra. I know I'm not saying that right, but I'm gonna get it. It was this mystery which was always presented to the candidates and explained during the mysteries, while the myth of the mundane egg was used as an illustration to bring this great truth to their minds and make it a living reality in their hearts. They were taught that the Christ seed or egg was dropped by the heavenly dove, called it bird of life, Parahamsa, Holy Ghost, or what you will, in the nest of their hearts, which they themselves had to build, purify, and prepare for its reception. Hence, only as they made conditions possible for the divine bird to hover over them and find a nesting place in their hearts, could she lay and hatch out the egg. After the egg was hatched, the heavenly dove brought daily to her nestings the heavenly food, mother love, on which they could feed and nourish. Also, as she made her home in the heart of soared into the heaven world, she created a spiral of magnetic life force over which the fledgling candidate could consciously ascend and gather the experience of the higher realms. This is what it's meant when we are told, bestride the bird of life. The engraving of a papyrus in Kircher's shows an egg floating above the mummy. This is a symbol of hope and the promise of second birth for the Osirified death. His soul, after due purification in Amenti, will gestate in the egg of immortality to be reborn therefrom into a new life on earth. For the egg is the Stoic doctrine in Devashan, the abode of bliss, the winged scarabus, also being another symbol of it. The winged globe is another form of the egg and has the same significance. A second reason for the egg having been chosen as a symbolical representation of the universe and of our earth was its form. It was a circle and a sphere, and the oviform shape of our globe must have been known from the beginning of symbology, since it was so universally adopted. The symbol of an egg also expresses the fact taught in occultism that the primordial form of everything manifested from atom to globe, from man to angel, is spheroidal, the sphere being with all nations the emblem of eternity and infinity, a serpent swallowing his tail. It is a scientific fact that in nature, all eggs and most seeds in which the future animal, plant, or man is latent are either circular or more or less modified spheroids in shape. This is a scientific collaboration of the occult teaching that the origins of all forms of manifested life are spheroidal. From the birth of new worlds out of central suns down to the microscopic cells of which all flesh is grown, our word cell is a Celtic name of heaven, cell. And this continuous birth of cell from cell was identical with deity, church, and priesthood, all belonging to one system for continuous gift and Patreon. Even the astral manifestations in a seance room prior to their etherealization or materialization appear as globes of light, or more or less blatancy. The circle and the cat. The cat, owning to its habit of curling up in a circle with its tail around its head to give but one reason, was considered as a symbol of the circle. Hence, just as a circle contains within itself the life of power of the 9 digits, so the cat is said to have 9 lives. The term lives, however, was originally not taken in its literal sense, but as referring to the 9 manifestations of the first life current represented in 9 digits. The goddess Basht or Pasht was represented with the head of a cat. This animal was held sacred for several reasons. It was the symbol of the moon, the eye of Osiris, or the sun, during the night. The cat was also sacred to Socket. One of the mystic reasons was because of its body being rolled up in a circle when asleep. The posture is prescribed for occult and magnetic purposes. The circulation of the vital fluid with which the cat is preeminently endowed, the 9 lives of a cat, is a popular saying based on a good physiological and occult reasons. Thus, the god Shu, the personification of Ra, who appears as the great cat of the basin of Persia in An, was often represented in Egyptian monuments seated and holding a cross attached to a circle. Among the Egyptians, the cat was held sacred not only because it slept in the form of a circle, or as many suppose, because of its ability to see in the dark, but because of its association with the goddess Basht and the moon. This relation has been explained by Professor Max Mueller as due to the fact that the eyes of the cat become full orbed and grow with luminous in the dark, and also because the moon was the seer by night in the heavens. The historic reason, however, is the ability of the cat to give out large quantities of animal magnetism and physical life force, as can so easily be proved by stroking a cat in the dark. Egyptians knew that this magnetism was but the outer manifestation of life force, and that under proper treatment, this life force could be given out so as to absorb by man. They understood the law that only through kindness and love could man make the lower kingdoms yield him their forces in such a way as to aid his own development. Hence, large numbers of cats were kept in the temples and treated with great care, that they might supply priests and seers with purified and harmonized animal magnetism, with certain of their duties and exercises abstracted from their bodies. This use of the cat is probably the origin of the superstition that a witch always had a cat familiar spirit in the form of a black cat, as a magnetism could, of course, be put to unholy as well as holy use. Also, by observing them, many auguries were made, and such a stoic, knowledge was deduced from their disposition and actions, which could surprise the modern scholars who think of the cat only as a mouse catcher and midnight prowler. In ancient ruins called Tel Besta, near Zagazig, a cemetery has been found devoted exclusively to mummified cats. In the tombs of Beni Hassan and elsewhere are found quantities of small images not only of Isis, Osiris, and Horus, but also of the cat sitting in watchful attitude, its eyes always prominent no matter how small or crude the image. These images are often strung on chains with mummy beads, and wrapped in the folds of the mummy cloths. Such images were not used for mere decoration, as many think, but because the cat was looked upon as the watcher of the night, not only owing to its ability to see in the dark, but also because of its extreme sensitiveness to all astral influences and its unmistakable ability to see astral entities. Cats were made household pets and closely watched, so the owner might be warned of the approach of undesirable astral forces and entities which he would then proceed to exorcise. They were placed in the tomb with the mummy for the same purpose, to watch over the deceased and warn him of evil influences in the netherworld. Among the Egyptians, the male cat is Ra himself, and he is called Mao by reason of speech of the god Sa, who said, covering him, he is like unto that which he hath made. Thus his name became Mao. Pause. Sometimes Ethan talks like he says, I love you. And he said, hello? He meows really weird. And I swear he says meow a lot. Like he doesn't meow. He's like, meow. Yeah. And for real, I'm not a witch, by the way. I've studied it, but I'm not. But Morgan is definitely my familiar and Ethan's my protector for sure. My first cat was an orange creamsicle cat. I really miss him. He was such a character. But yeah, no, cats are awesome. I know a lot of people freak out about cats, but it is what it is. But they're really good luck. I love them and they're easy to maintain. Just when their food is out of stock, it sucks. In Ireland and Scotland, it is the common belief that a three-colored cat, tortoiseshell, brings good fortune. Hence, if such a cat attaches itself to a home, it is considered a sign of great good luck. The selection of this particular kind of cat is based upon the three colors combined in its fur, namely black, white, and yellow, thus showing that the ancient Celts had a practical understanding of both color and number. It was also held that three-colored cat was an aid to the unfoldment of the astral senses, or second sight, the black aid in clairvoyance, the yellow clairsentience, and the white ability to receive spiritual inspiration and prophecy. For these reasons, a three-colored kitten was often given to a child as a constant companion and playmate, believing that it would enable the child to see in the three worlds. Much of the psychic ability of the canny Scot is attributed to this custom. In Jarvis' letters, previously referred to, the great cat or lion is connected with the Jews and Judah as follows, quote, "Our big cat lion made the whole cat family sacred as a recorded name. Our Celt cat naming the house or family of deity, and her picture always named the moon goddess. She believes specifically identified with astronomy, being addressed on the walls of Thebes as, oh, the great cat, thou who canst see at night. The lion represents the deity and priesthood always identified with the namings. The sitting lion has the same posture as the lion sphinx, whose Egyptian name is Jupiter or Hugh Father. The Hugh or Jew, J-U, named as the Jew peoples of Denmark. America, England, and Syria, and the Lion of Judah was the biblical sign name of the Hebrews or Jews. It will be remembered that in Revelation, it was only the great cat or lion which was found worthy to open the book of life and lose its 7 seals. Only the ability to see in the darkness of earth conditions the heavenly visions, the ability to store up and give out to the race the divine life force, the ability to manifest the powers of 9 digits latent in the circle, and the ability consciously to cope with all astral conditions, make of man the lion of the tribe of Judah, and enable him to unloose the 7 seals and open the book of life. At the opening of the 5th seal, there was a plague of locusts, having lions' teeth. At the opening of the 6th seal, horses appeared, having lions' heads. And when the 7 thunderers uttered their voices, they roared as a lion. All which points out to the world the old stoic doctrine that man becomes a lion only when he has completed his circle and reached the number 10. Also that it is man himself, while passing through the lower phase of animal passion, who brings to the race the 7 plagues, judgments, cataclysms. Hence only when the lion and the lamb can lie down together and submit to the leading of the Christ child, can the lion of the tribe of Judah find his true place in the perfect city of the New Jerusalem circle, as the aura and the ring pass not. So I'm going to leave that there. We're going to carry on next time with chapter 4, which is the circle as the aura and the ring pass not. So I hope you enjoyed The Key to the Universe by H.A. Curtis, 1917. And let me tell you, my goodness, it's so good. Like, I can go reading on all night, but I've been on enough and have to relight some sage. I'm fine, don't worry. So I'm wishing everybody a wonderful rest of your week. Love and light to everybody. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the next one. Make sure you like, subscribe to my channel, and share. And if you can make a love donation for me, that'd be amazing. I'm in really hard times right now, and anything can help. And I thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Bye.